the best starting fives from every position. So it's of course point guards, shooting guards, small forwards, power forwards, and centers. I'm just gonna get this intro right out of the way, and I'd like to say first that these are all gonna be based on my opinions for who plays these positions. So like the 2020s right now are positionless basketball, so these are just what I think, what they are to me. So while also taking into account their play styles, their leadership, and instead of just taking the best players from that specific position, I'm going to be taking into account their leadership and will they fit together. Now, before we get started, it would be greatly appreciated if you subscribe to the channel. Here on the Mix Channel, we make content, NBA content, that you're surely going to enjoy. Also, leave a like because it helps a lot, and if you want to support me, and if you're new, comment down below, I subscribe, shout out. There, I'll shout you out in the next video, reply to your comment, and heart you, and heart your comment. Now, today's shout outs are Ethan and Axel. So thank you guys for supporting the channel. It really means the world to me. So that being said, let's begin with first starting off with the point guard position. Now, the point guards are of course the smallest position, and the goal of this team is to outscore their opponents. Now at point guard, we have Steph Curry still. He is the greatest shooter ever, and his presence on and off the ball, being a catch and shoot or just creating his own shot, is crazy. He can facilitate, averaging over 6 assists per game the last couple of years, and is no question the best point guard in the NBA today. As shooting guard, we got Dame Dollar, a top 3 point guard, I would say, in my opinion. His shooting is amazing, especially those logo Lillard threes, and he's also a threat at the rim. Now this backcourt of Curry and Dame won't have the best defense, but like I said, they want to outscore their opponents, and just drilling these threes can definitely outscore them. Now at small forward, it's really close between Jrue Holiday or Chris Paul. Both can lock up, but Holiday will take left shots, which on a loaded team like this might be better, but of course CP3 is the better player. I'm gonna go with CP mainly because of his leadership, and on the Suns he hasn't been taking too much shots, rather being the facilitator that they really need. Then at power forward, we have Luka Doncic. He's a generational talent as a shot maker, playmaker, and when he doesn't have to carry the offense, he can be really good on defense. Now his size at 6'8" gives him positional flexibility, so I think he can handle being at power forward. Then of course, Ben Simmons is playing center. He's gonna lock up the paint and be the best perimeter defender in the NBA, thus being an easy choice. He doesn't need to shoot because he is literally a center, and when he has amazing shooters in Curry, Dame, Luka, who yes, he's a below average, but when he's taking catch and shoot, he is pretty good at those, and Chris Paul, that can really open up the game. Now at the shooting guards, this is also going to be, like all of them, a really stacked lineup. And at point guard, we have to go with James Harden. He's basically playing point guard on the Nets, with Kyrie taking the backseat as shooting guard, and he will always personally be a shooting guard to me. He changed his whole play style, more of a facilitator, being more efficient, and just more effort on defense. At shooting guard, we have a riser being Jaylen Brown. Before the season, I don't think anyone would have had Brown in this type of tier, but he's been really good on both sides of the ball. In my opinion, he is an all-NBA guy and can just score on and off the ball while being an elite 3-level scorer. He can also guard 1 through 4, which can really become really clutch. He is 6'6" with a 7-foot wingspan. He's a really good one-on-one defender, and yes, he needs to work on his off-ball, but he still provides versatility on both ends. Then at shooting guard, we have Devin Booker, someone who can get a bucket. Now, it was really tough between Devin Booker and Bradley Beal, and yes, I know 100% Bradley Beal is better than Devin Booker, but Booker is 2 inches taller, a better defender, and playmaker, and you don't want someone who is 6'3" at the small forward position. And I would rather have a 90 to 95% of that guy Devin Booker being Bradley Beal, and just being 6'5" and a better defender. At power forward, we then got Klay Thompson. Now he of course has been through an Achilles and ACL tear, but hoping he returns at least 90%, but still being an elite player, being able to lock up just players, and which they really need with a team of Devin Booker and James Harden, while also being able to provide some elite spacing. He can guard 1 through 4 and will be just, and yes, he will of course be undersized, but I think Klay Thompson can no doubt keep his hold. Then at center, we of course have a small ball center, and that's Paul George. He is a top perimeter defender. He is the tallest shooting guard in the whole NBA, being 6'8", and he could shoot, and of course being a previous MVP candidate. He could definitely be a good small ball 5, because he can guard the perimeter and space the floor. Now, I am kind of scared on this team about the playoffs. James Harden and Paul George are nowhere near where they are in the regular season in the playoffs when the defense locks up. Booker has never been there, so we have no idea how he's going to perform. And yes, Brown and Klay are good, especially Game 3 Klay, but their stars in Harden and Paul George definitely need to step up. Now, the guys I barely missed off the shooting guard list is CJ McCollum, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Zach LaVine, and I know you can probably have this guy, but Donovan Mitchell. Now, I think that the defense of Zach LaVine and CJ McCollum isn't good enough, and I would personally have Devin Booker over all of them. Shai is probably the most versatile out of those three, but he's just not good enough yet. And Mitchell, yes, he's an amazing leader, will perform in the playoffs, but I think that just him being so undersized and not being he's an average defender, but not being an elite defender like Jaylen Brown or Klay Thompson, I barely had to cut him off the list. Then going to the small forward starting 5. The small forward is of course the most versatile position, and in my opinion, the best position of all time. And for the current, at point guard, you have LeBron James, and I think this is a no question. Even at 36 years old, he's better than ever. He can still outmuscle his opponents all the way to the rim, one of the greatest passers ever, and still has that amazing IQ, and this year has caught fire from downtown. And then he's basically a point guard with his ball handling, and I think he would definitely fit as a point guard. Then as shooting guard, we have Chris Middleton. Now, Middleton is not the biggest name, but he's really underrated. And he's just an efficient 50-49 guy, is a good defender when he tries. He'll be the 5th option, but his spacing and overall shot making will be vital. Then at the small forward, we have Jason Tatum. He was an all-star starter, and yes, he hasn't been as good since contracting the virus, but he's still an amazing two-way player while still only being 22 years old. Then we have Kawhi Leonard at the power forward. He can guard 1 through 4s at an elite level and can just give you a bucket anytime with a quick first step, athletic drive to the rim, a high release mid-range, or just pull up from downtown and knock it at a consistent rate. Then Kevin Durant is center. Yes, he is skinny, but he still is 7 foot. He is the best scorer of all time, with being a 3-level scorer and just being unguardable basically, while also his playmaking improving. He has shown that he can play with stars when he played with Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and also playing with Draymond, Curry, and Klay. And I just think that this team is so good on both ends. All of these guys are above average defenders, where LeBron was a DPOY second place in 2012. Chris Middleton is an underrated defender. Kawhi is a former defensive player of the year. And just all of these guys are so good, while all of them being able to get a bucket. And this team is just so stacked. Then looking at the power forward starting 5, this one was the hardest to make because this is not the most top heavy, but more deep. And I just think that because of that, it's a lot harder to choose between some guys rather than a small forward, LeBron, Kawhi, Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum. They're all locks in there. And this team, because they're not as top heavy, they're more of a defensive team. And at point guard, we have Draymond Green. I know he can't shoot, or just flat out he isn't a scorer, but his playmaking just makes everyone else's job so much easier. He's a top 10 defender of all time, and maybe the best team defender in NBA history. And I just think that his facilitating can help so much as the point guard. Then at the 2, I went for someone, I think you really want someone who won't take too many shots, but just be an efficient 3-and-D wing. And that's Bojan Bogdanovic. He's really underrated. And this year, on this really good Jazz team, he's averaging 16 points on 40% from downtown. While, just like when I remember Bojan is that in 2018, in the playoffs, he slowed LeBron James down, and that's just what you want from a guy that won't take too many shots. So be, yes, the 5th option, but just being able to defend and shoot a little bit. Then, at the 3, we got Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's a top 5 player in the league. He is a previous 2-time MVP, and last year's Defensive Player of the Year. And just, he was a no question for this one. Then, at power forward, it was really close between 3 players, being Julius Randle, Domantas Sabonis, and Pascal Siakam. Randle is the best shooter, and has a similar all-around game to someone like Domantas Sabonis, who is here, while Pascal is the best defender. I'm personally going to give it to Randle, mainly because he is the best shooter, and that's what we really need. And also, it kind of shows, like, in the All-Star voting, where out of those 3, he made the All-Star game over all 3 of them. So I think we're just going to put Randle here for respect. Then, at center, we got Anthony Davis. And I personally think, as a Laker fan, that he's best at center. They're just like, he can guard the paint, and like for the Lakers, you don't really want 2 bigs to be there. And yes, he's having a down year this year, but he's still a defensive and offensive juggernaut. And I just think that overall, this team is really enticing, as there isn't much shooting, but they can dominate the interior defense and paint. Now, a guy I barely had to leave off is Zion Williamson. I know Zion has been an absolute tear, but is an all-star, but I just think that him not being able to shoot really hurts his game on a team with Giannis, Draymond, AD, and yes, Randle and Bojan are pretty good shooters, but I think that we want that spacing, and I think Randle provides that over Zion. And then finally, the last we're going to be looking at is the center position. And there, of course, the center position is the tallest position, and it's just so crazy how much the center position has changed so much. In the last 50 years, or in the 2000s all the way to the existence, they were dominating the post for, like I said, 50 years. But then, in the space and pace era, they had to shoot threes and kind of being able to keep their hold on the perimeter. And this center position was dead for several years in the early 2010s, but now a center is the top 3 MVP guys, and 2 of them are centers. So at point guard, we have Nikola Jokic. He's the best passing big man ever. And even though he is not athletic, he lost unneeded weight, which is very helpful, and just used his skill. And I just think that Jokic can do anything on offense. It might be just the best offensive big of all time. And in my opinion, is the best center in the NBA, though it is really close. Then, at shooting guard, we have Karl Anthony Towns, who is the best shooting big of all time. And he has faced a lot of injuries and off-the-court problems, but still, he got that talent. Then, Bam Adebayo takes the small forward spot, as he is the most versatile center in the whole NBA. And just, Bam broke out last year, being second in most improved, and just his versatile play, being able to protect the paint and switch onto guards, is just so crucial, while on offense being able to catch lobs, and this year really developing his mid-range jump shot. Then at the 4 is Joel Embiid, and he is personally my most valuable player. He dominates in the paint, and this year has been an amazing shooter, and statistically one of the best mid-range players in the whole league, while also shooting 40% from downtown. And he's just so good defensively too, protecting the paint. Then at center, it was really close between Rudy Gobert and Nikola Vucevic. Rudy is a much better interior defender and is an overall better player, but Vooch is much better on offense and can also shoot, which is needed with Joel Embiid, Bam Adebayo, Jokic. And I just think that it's really close, but I'm going to give this slight edge to Rudy to just enforce that defensive identity, defensive big that they really need. They're probably going to run a zone, mainly because only Bam can guard the perimeter. But I think it might work. Now, a big, I mean, like, it's tough to say, but I don't know if this team can really win in the playoffs with, like, the point guard list, for example, being super, like, being able to, none of these guys being able to stop them. But on offense, no one can stop these guys. So that's going to be the starting five from every position. Personally, if I had to rank these, I would rank it for the small forward, second, point guard, third, shooting guard, fourth, center, and fifth, power forward. But comment down below what you would change. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the videos, comment down below your thoughts, and I'll see you on next time.